Let's get started.
Welcome to the Financial Purpose Podcast. All opinions expressed by me or guests of the podcast are solely our own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Life Moves Wealth Management. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for any investment decisions. Clients of Life Moves Wealth Management may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast. All right, welcome to episode 92 of the Financial Purpose Podcast. I am your host, Dale Shafer, and today, very excited, I have a very special guest, special to me, at least, and we have Carl Richards from The Behavior Gap joining us today. And Carl, I've been following your work for years. Your fingerprints are on a lot of the work that I do now, and so excited to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Dale. Really excited to have this conversation.
Yep, fantastic. So, Carl, I thought I would tell the listeners just a minute about how I found you and then let you do a little bit more of an introduction. But I discovered you in 2019, and I found the book. I was looking for ways to do financial planning better. I had this sense that there was something missing in the way that we're all trained, in the way that we're supposed to do things. And I found the one-page financial plan, and I read that, and I had also had already found Michael Kitces, and then you guys had started doing the podcast together, and so that book, the one-page financial plan, really resonated with what I was thinking about where the industry is going and where clients really need versus what I think we're trained. So they don't want. I was sensing the 45-page doorstop kind of financial plan, because what I was finding is that these things are so long. You have 20 pages of projections, 4 or 5 pages of written advice, and then 15 pages about how everything that we said may or may not happen in disclosure form. And so I just noticed clients' eyes were glazing over. The book really helped put that into perspective for me, and so then I went through the fellowship and joined the membership, and now I'm a regular attendee on those meetings. And so I just really have enjoyed working with you in that regard, and as I said, one of my mentors. So Carl, if you want to give a little bit of background on yourself as well, that'd be awesome.
Sure. I apply. I mean, the short history is I applied to be a security guard. I thought it was a security guard. It turns out it was a securities position. That's how I got into the industry. It was quite by accident. But I stayed because I quickly, through a series of events, quickly discovered that this whole situation around money is, it's not a matter of math, right? Like I thought once I'd figured out had a money job, I thought it would be a math job. Mm-hmm. That 2 + 2 always equals 4. It doesn't matter how I feel about it. And then I saw people's behavior and my own behavior with, in relationship to how I spent money. Particularly, it shows up with how we invest money. We get scared and we get worried and we get anxious, we get nervous. When you ask somebody what the dollar symbol means to them, people don't say a spreadsheet or a calculator. They say things like fear or anxiety or freedom. Mm-hmm. And so I stayed in the industry because of that. This is a deeply human experience, our relationship with money. And we need to start having more conversations about that. So that led from running my own wealth management firm and then writing for the New York Times for 10 years. I did a weekly column for them for 10 years. And then the books came out. And now I just seem to wander around the world having conversations about what money actually means to us. And then how do we operate in that world? Like, how do we build a portfolio based on what's really meaningful?
Right.
So that's really a short history.
Yeah. And I think that's actually a really good segue, because you have written a new book called Your Money Reimagined. At least I believe that's the title. Is that the correct title?
Yeah, it's Your Money Reimagining Wealth Through 101 Simple Sketches.
Perfect. And I love the way you open the book, Carl, because you say, very first sentence, this is not a book, it's a conversation grenade.
Yeah.
And I love that sentence. So what does that mean to you as you wrote it?
Yeah. So I'm deeply interested in, the book. I hope everybody buys the book. That's great. But what I really, the why beneath that is these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I found that the sketches particularly acted as and my friend Hugh McLeod coined this phrase conversation grenade, that you could sort of throw them in a room and conversations would break out. So we have, financial advisors all over the country and clients, readers all over the country that have like printed them out and put them on the wall. And we constantly get reports of people saying, my daughter walked in and was like, "What's that?" Or a client picked it up, or I found it myself in a conversation with a spouse because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm interested in, is like, can we start having more conversations about money? My humble little goal with the book is to start a million meaningful conversations about money. So that's how I think of the book, as just, it's meant to be used, right? It's meant to be dog-eared and talked about and sit on the kitchen table and sitting in the foyer in the lobby. So that's what I think of when I think of conversation grenades.
Yeah, and there are several of the sketches that I have purchased and have used in various forms of media to have these conversations with
Yeah.
clients, and they're always just a unique way to express it, because we can, in this business, we run the risk of saying a lot of words and not really saying anything at all, and these sketches really provide that pathway. So there's 101 of them. I pulled a few out that I thought would be great conversation grenades for this conversation. So
Yeah.
we'll jump right on into that, and we should have that coming up on the screen.
Yeah.
So this is sketch number 27, and it's called "Your Money, Your Goals." And the thing I loved about this sketch is in the text you wrote, the one thing that's just commonly true is that we spend money we don't have to buy things we don't want to impress people we don't like that much. And I think that's so true, because in financial planning and in the comparison trap, we find ourselves often, doing the keeping up with the Joneses or whatever version of that it looks like. And we kind of get lost on what's most important to us, because we're thinking about what's most important to us, maybe in the lens of what's important to other people to see us doing or having,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah. It's really hard to unplug yourself, to use an overused cliche, to unplug yourself from the matrix this way. Like, and Instagram's only made it more challenging, right? Or Instagram life. Like when I was growing up, you know, I, we didn't, obviously, I mean, the internet wasn't around. We didn't have, I don't think we had a computer in the home. Like I know we didn't have phones. And I knew that I wanted a slightly better dirt bike because all my 7-year-old buddies had dirt bikes. And so I always sort of knew, like, maybe I'd like a mongoose instead of a red line or whatever.
That was for me, the mongoose. Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't know that I was supposed to want a private jet. Right. And now I know. Now I know I want a chateau in France, and I want to travel to the Maldives, and now I know because I see it every day. And so
Right.
getting really clear about your goals. And this was hard back then. This is hard before social media, because you had to deal with your parents' goals for you, your community's goals for you. But now it's even harder. So it's just, and the solution to this is just to run small little experiments. Like if you think you would love to retire with 5 million in a sailboat, it'd be a good idea to go out for a day on a sailboat. Like, just
Yeah.
as a silly example, like, so you can run small little experiments to decide. And it's okay for you to go, I mean, here's a quick example. My wife and I had this goal of having a deeper connection with more friends. And so we were very intentional about going to dinner and a movie with friends. Because that's kind of what you do when you want to have friends, is you go to dinner and a movie with friends. And then we'd get home and be like, the restaurant was noisy. And then we sat in the theater. Like, we never got a chance to even talk. Well, so we like, what if we invited them over to our house, had the ingredients, and we spent 2 or 3 hours making and eating a meal together? Well, much different. It turned out it was cheaper, but that wasn't the point.
Right.
So, like, just running little experiments to see what's your goal, what matters to you, what are you excited about, what do you get value from? That's kind of the idea behind that sketch.
Yeah. I love it. And I think it's a great parlay into this one.
Yeah.
So this is the FOMO, and I call this the FOMO and fear line, for a lot of people, because some of that, what's important to me, is quickly pulled offline by what they're seeing on social media or hearing on the news or watching on the financial pornography networks, right? Or the newsletters or the neighbor or the cousin or whatever. And this one we see all the time, especially when markets get a little wonky like they've been this year.
Yeah, and look, that's maybe the most popular sketch. It was on the cover of my first book, and I think that the first message is that we like deep empathy for all of us because we do this, and it's actually hardwired behavior that's really served us well for survival as a species. You know,
Mhm.
when I'm hardwired to get more of anything that gives me security or pleasure, and I'm hardwired to run as fast as I can from anything that causes me pain. So that's we should just be empathetic to one another because of this behavior, but it wreaks havoc in our investments. So you can see sort of, and that repeat until broke was meant to be like a lot of the work I do around the sketches is to make them confrontational without being off-putting.
Yeah.
You know, like, can I see myself in it? And this is the one that more advisors, more people tell me. They'll be like, clients will point to this and say, "Oh man, I do this. Help me stop it." And I just want to make sure everybody understands we all do. And there's a reason we do. It's because our brains are wired for it. And so we've got to be very intentional about avoiding it and putting specific guardrails in place in our investment process to make sure we avoid it. Because if you think you will avoid this on your own, there are few people that are wired to do the opposite. Warren Buffett famously said, I want to be fearful when everyone else is greedy and greedy when everyone else is fearful. There are a few people like that, but most of us are the everyone else.
Right.
We're wired for it. So just deep empathy, empathetic hug, and then like let's put some rules in place to make sure we avoid that behavior.
Yeah, I always go back to I had a client, a very wealthy client early in my career, and I was working under another advisor in a support role. And that client told me that your portfolio is a lot like a bar of soap. The more you touch it, the smaller it gets.
Yes, that's a good one. I haven't actually heard that one.
Yeah, and so the whole process, the investing process, is not supposed to be sexy and flashy and moving around. It really should be boring. I mean,
For sure.
Charlie Munger, right? It's like it should be like watching paint dry or
Yeah,
grass grow.
those two cats, Charlie and Warren Buffett, they also said the hallmark of our investment process is benign neglect bordering on sloth.
I like that
So
one too.
yeah, it's super smart.
Yeah. So great segue into this one. Security is a feeling, and I think that often drives that fear and FOMO, repeat until broke thing. And you in the book said that it's really the whole thing is about how you think, not about what you own. And it's funny. My wife and I, we had a probably 15 years ago. We had someone break into our home while we were away.
Mm,
Thank the Lord. And we installed a security system, and we bought a very beautiful German Shepherd from Germany. Only had the German commands, right? And our kids very quickly turned her into a Labrador, which was fantastic.
right, right.
But we thought we felt really secure, and then we realized we're really only secure as we feel, and in anything that we're doing in life, in any area.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's just really important. I mean, money. Austin Kleon said in a conversation I was with Austin Kleon Steele, like an artist, he's an author, said money up to a certain point, money is a stabilizing force, and above that point, it becomes an agent of chaos. And like where that point is, there's like research and whatever, but I think it varies widely by person, where you live, all those other things. It doesn't really matter where that point is, but when money, if feeling secure, if you're insecure with money, more money won't solve that problem.
Right.
And same with enough, like if I just have X, and I'm not even going to use the number, because if I use a number, we'll all want to debate the number and we'll miss the point. If I just have X, that'll finally be enough. That doesn't work. Security and enough can't be a number, or else you'll never reach it. Now, again, Austin Kleon's idea of like a stabilizing force is there's some amount of money and this is really debatable, there's some amount of money that make conditions of feeling secure or feeling enough easier. I think I can make that claim. Although I know lots of people with more money than they'll ever need. They're the most insecure people I've ever met.
Yeah.
And they don't have enough. And then I know I have met plenty of people who have nothing and seem to have enough. And so I don't know. I don't even know where that line is. But I buy the argument that in America, at least, I buy the argument that there's a certain level of sort of above subsistence level that might make it easier to feel like I'm secure and I have enough. But once you're above that level, it's a job that the money can't do.
Right.
Like we've given money jobs it can't do, and one of them is feeling secure, self-esteem, enough. Any of those words, happy, any of those words is a job money can't do.
Yeah, and I think all of those words are where we have as financial advisors the highest value. It's not in the security selection and the investment process. I mean, there's some value there, but our I think our highest value is in guiding clients through those conversations around those words because they directly impact how they behave around money. And I know that's, the kind of the holistic part of the work that you're doing, but um, I think that's where the conversations are probably the best and most needed for the role that we play.
I agree. And I also agree that like there's a whole bunch of this work that happens in the head, spreadsheets, calculators, projections, and it's incredibly important. Like it's critical actually to doing the work, but like the real work actually happens after we've nailed the numbers and the lines and the projections and the spreadsheets, and it happens in the heart. And I think we need to get better at realizing, like, it's just interesting conversations with people of like, how did that feel? Oh, tell me about that.
Yeah.
Oh man, I got this huge raise. Hey, I'm just sort of curious. Can we just play a game for a second? Like when you actually got the raise and you saw it deposited in your account, like I'm just curious, like how did that feel? And I love asking, like, where did it feel? Like, like, oh, there a letter arrived from the IRS. I'm so nervous. Oh, tell me, super curious, like nervous. What did that feel like? Where? Oh, chest, tightening between the shoulder blades. Sometimes I even ask, like, hey, if that feeling was a color, what color would it be?
Oh, that's
And look,
interesting.
the reason for all this is because the body will send you signals a long time before your head will catch up. And so if you find yourself in a repeated argument with a spouse about money, I bet before that argument happened, or as it started, I bet there was a feeling associated with it. Like if you're going in for your annual review with your boss hoping for a raise and you're feeling anxious, like to notice the anxiousness and actually become aware of it will allow you to stop letting it drive the decisions you're making
Yeah.
unconsciously. So I think that's why this is not like soft, woo woo California conversation. This is hardcore. I want you to be better with your money.
Yep.
Well, in order to be better with your money, you're going to have to get in tune a little bit with that fear that leads you to sell when things are scary, or that greed that leads you to buy when your neighbor's bragging, or the
Yeah.
envy that leads you to buy when your friend buys a water ski boat. Like
Yeah.
all of those things happen here.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I often tell clients that the better that I understand what's happening between here and here and then here and here,
Yeah.
the better advice I can provide because like if I'm asking you to make a financial choice and it's not resonating, you're not going to do it and we're going to have conflict in the advisory relationship. And
Yeah.
it takes me out of position to serve you well and it takes you out of position to serve yourself well. And so we have to understand those two things, the feelings. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's like alignment's a really good word, right? Like getting all of this stuff. And by the way, this is a constant practice. You're never done. Like getting your actions aligned with how you feel, your behavior aligned with your values. Like it's just this always moving mark. Occasionally you nail it. You're like, oh, that feels great. And the next morning something will be out of alignment. So it's a practice.
Yeah. I think along with that sketch, this one is like the perfect companion, which is why I think they're back to back in the book, right? At least that's how I read it. I was like, oh, of course
Yeah.
they would be back to back. The magic certainty button. I think that this is possibly one of the biggest downfalls of financial planning in the traditional sense, because we do these 30-year projections to provide some level of certainty. And I think we all know that life changes day by minute a lot of times. And so a 30-year projection doesn't speak to how life is evolving in real time.
Yeah, there's this desire, and I think it comes. I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out where did we lose the plot with money? And I think it's because we were fundamentally, if we were taught anything about money, we were taught that it's a math problem. It's a matter of, and if we want to get a little bit more complicated, it's a physics problem. So we have a bit of physics envy. We want to reduce this all down to math equations. And the other piece of it is, as humans, we crave certainty, and we sort of run away in some domains of our lives. We run away from uncertainty, and so certainty is easy to sell for those reasons, but it's impossible to deliver.
Yeah.
And I think so. The sooner we can realize that the calculations and the spreadsheets and the projections are really, really important, because they give us a sense of direction. They give us a course. And then the moment we draw them, we can hold in our minds the same time, like having the perfect plan and projection is incredibly important. And it doesn't matter at all. We can hold those both things in our mind, because what matters is the ongoing process of correcting, right? So, yeah, I think the sooner we realize, and just one quick, like, if you think there's a certainty button out there, just go back and maybe pull up your calendar, your Google Calendar, or even your journal if you journal regularly. Go back up and just read and look at what you were planning for, even, I don't know, in January. Look in January of 2020 and just look at your plans for even April, but certainly the summer plan. Like, you go to like every year. You go to like every year in June. It's a family vacations. We've been doing our family for 30 years. That year you didn't go to the lake, probably. So I think the more we can be comfortable with the idea that navigating uncertain terrain, in some domains we call that adventure.
Sure.
We call it drama. We call it suspense. We don't go to the art museum because we know what we're going to feel, right? We don't go to movies because we know the plot. So the more we can kind of get comfortable with the reality that the ground is shifting beneath our feet, and this has only been more true this last 6 months, to be honest.
Right.
So yeah, the magic certainty button doesn't exist. Stop trying to find it. Certainly stop paying people who are promising you that they've got a certainty button, because it's not reality.
I agree. And it's all the more reason that we need to do the ongoing financial planning process.
The key word there. Yeah.
Ongoing. Yeah, absolutely. On that vein, this is the sketch that I have hanging in my office and gets a lot of conversation. Because clients, they just say, what, it's a Venn diagram. Great. What does it mean? And I have kind of a philosophy with how I approach planning, because I have people who say, well, I just need to save everything I can right now so that I can spend it later. And I also have people who are like, yeah, well, I only live one time as far as I know. Right. And I'll deal with later. So I'm just going to have fun now. And I think that real financial planning, the concept is the word "and" for me.
Yeah, I agree.
It's "and." We enjoy life while we have it, and we prepare ourselves for our future selves, so that way our future selves don't look back and just be like, "What were you thinking?"
Right.
And especially as the planner, like, you have the sketch where the financial planner is in the middle of you doing something stupid, right?
Big mistakes.
Yeah. And I think that's where this conversation really comes in. So it's like I said, the reason that it hangs in my office, because it perfectly illustrates how I see it.
Yeah, I love that. One of the most impactful books I've ever read about money was called Your Money or Your Life. And it's a classic, it's and I love everything about it except the title. I always felt this conflict, like they're in competition, your money or your life. I have to choose. And I love the way you frame that. It's like this
Yeah.
book, the title of my new book was Your Money and Your Life to start with. And then I'm always trying to make things simpler. So I was like, how about if we just go with your money? But that's the tension. And that tension, by the way, that Venn diagram, every time I see it, I want it to move. I want the overlap to be a complete overlap. I want there to be a gap. I want it to be move, because it is dynamic tension that you'll never resolve. And the tension is like, don't try to get rid of the tension. The
Right.
tension is the thing. The tension between, gosh, am I getting this balance right? And sometimes you'll make mistakes on the side of spending too much now. Sometimes you'll make mistakes on the side of saving too much later and missing, like, God, we really should have taken that trip. Darn it, my daughter. I mean, listen, it's hard. I get a little emotional about this idea that last year, my 24-year-old daughter asked me if I would go take her to Baja, Mexico surfing during her spring break. Like 24, dad, could we go surf? Like, this involved getting in the truck and drive. I mean, we were going to take all our own food. Like, this is not going to be an expensive trip,
Right.
but it involved 4 or 5 days. I mean, the only answer to that question is is yes, you know, like, of course you have to, but I've said no to those. I've said like, oh, I'm too busy. And I look back and wish I would have spent that time and that money then. And then I've overdone it. So living in that tension, I think, is really important for all of us.
Yeah, and I think we all have those stories. I certainly do, and sometimes it's, it's like the cobbler doesn't have shoes, and the cobbler's kids aren't wearing the shoes either. And I tell clients a lot of times, like, there are things that I'm asking you to do that I think is only appropriate that you can hold me accountable to as well, because I have to eat my own cooking. If I'm going to give advice, I need to be willing to do it as well. And sometimes that advice is, no, take the trip, do the thing. And they're like, yeah,
Yeah,
but
spend the money.
right. And then they're like, yeah, but when are you doing it? And I'm like, oh, you're right.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
So
Amazing.
last sketch, Carl, that I pulled out, and this one I really liked. More importantly than the sketch, I loved the story. So you're at your son's lacrosse game. Your mother, you see her across the field, and she just has this look on her face. She sits down next to you, and she tells you that she's worried about the dollar.
Yeah. Yeah. So my, I'd been in the financial advice industry for a really long time, and I'd never had a conversation about currency.
Yeah.
It was at a big firm, right, that you would all know the name of. And I never had a conversation about currency. And my mom sits down, and my mom hasn't spent much time in financial stuff, and she certainly had never talked about currency. So when she sat down, I was like, "What's wrong?" And she said, "Oh, the dollar. I'm just so worried about the dollar." And I was like, I wanted to say, like, "What radio station have you been listening to?" But I didn't. I just said, "Oh, tell me more about that." You said, "Oh, it could collapse." And so then we spent the rest of the time having this conversation about, would it matter if the dollar collapsed? Of course it would matter.
Sure.
But the bigger question was, did my mom have any control over it, especially right then when when she was at watching her grandson play lacrosse, or the next day when she was going to be at church. And instead she was spinning around these concerns around the dollar. And so this became a real touchstone for me. And I would dare say thousands and thousands of people now, because this one's printed all over the place,
Sure.
that when you start getting worried, like, take yourself through this exercise. Like, okay, first of all, would it matter? Because a lot of times, like, I remember a client of mine, her favorite hobby was knitting. She lived in a small rural town in Utah. She called me one day super worried back in the late 90s about a skirmish in the Middle East. And 90% of her money was in fixed income, in CDs, right? Like, so rural Utah, CDs, knitting. There's nothing about this situation, as tragic as it is elsewhere. There was nothing about it that mattered to her situation. And then, of course, she had no control over it.
Yeah.
And so and the great news, Dale, is, as you know, if you were to make a list of the 10 things that matter on your lifetime success financially, 8 of them you probably have control over. And I don't know what the 2 are, but I know one is the equity markets and the economy. And I'm not saying don't spend any time on those. I'm just saying let's allocate the time appropriately. Like, spend the time focusing on the things you have control over,
Right.
not worried about the others.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about this sketch every time. 2 years ago, I had someone say, hey, we should be buying into the BRICS countries because the dollar's going to collapse. I'm like, BRICS? Like, what are we talking about? Like, I thought we were just talking about you're making a very important job change consideration, and now you're switching to BRICS. Like,
Yeah. Well, and it's like deep empathy for all of us humans, right? Like,
yeah,
I remember when that was all in the news, and of course it seems important, and there's people in suits yelling about it, and my neighbor said something about it, and of course, aren't we going to do something? And a deep empathy for that. And I think then we can take ourselves from those branches and get back to the trunk and the roots of the tree through using the sketch as a tool to say, oh, wait, that's right. Wait, should I take this new job? Okay. Hey, remind me, what exposure do we have if something did go sideways?
right.
Have you thought about that? Oh, of course, Mr. and Mrs. Klein, I've thought about that. Here's how it fits in. Like, that's the process, I think, from scary back to grounded.
Yeah. Well, Carl, I know we're kind of coming in here to the close. This is actually the last sketch, and it's the last sketch in the book. I pulled it as the last sketch because I wanted to turn it back to you, because you're in my circle of gratitude, and I really appreciate all the work that you're doing, all the ways that you've helped me have great conversations with clients, and I really love that this sketch showed up as the way to close the book.
Mm. Well, Dale, thank you. And just know that it's on behalf of your listeners, like, we know you don't necessarily need to be doing this. And so having these conversations is really valuable. I really think really good financial decisions happen in conversation, and conversations with your kids, conversations with a spouse or partner, a business partner, they happen in conversation. And in order to make really good decisions, we just have to get more comfortable having those conversations, because believe me, none of us were taught. So commit to it,
Yeah.
right? Realize it's going to be clumsy. Realize you're going to make mistakes. Realize you're going to get triggered in a way that you're surprised. Like, whoa, did I just get upset? Millions of stories about that. And then when you get upset, you can come back to the person and say, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was so important to me, or I didn't realize that, my mom always told me not to be spoiled. I didn't realize that would come up here. I'm sorry. Like, so just
Right.
commit to having these conversations, because that's the only way we're going to get better with our money.
Yeah. I love it. So, Carl, when does the Conversation Grenade launch?
Yeah, the book's available for pre-order now, but it comes out in October.
Fantastic. And it'll be available. Where can people get it?
Yeah, everywhere, the bookstore, the airport. But what's really great is buy 2 copies. Buy one from Amazon and one from your local bookstore.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, and for your for your audience, just know too that if people want, we've designed a Friends of Carl excerpt, which has the cover, the introduction, the table of contents, and 7 of the actual sketches and essays, which we'll give you all the details. And if you want to share that with your audience, you can.
I would love to. Yeah, appreciate that.
Okay.
Carl,
Cheers, Dale.
thank you so much. Take
Yeah,
care.
thank you. That was really fun.
Likewise. See ya. Thanks for listening to this episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. To learn more about your financial purpose, visit lifemoveswealth.com.